Everyone's favorite UFC fighter from Australia that has a Mexican first name is back. Carlos Ulberg will be taking on Jiri Prochazka at UFC 327 for the vacant light heavyweight belt. And I want to get this out the way. I'm a Jiri Prochazka guy. This is one of my favorite fighters. One of the reasons why I post videos on YouTube, TikTok, social media, the whole fucking shebang. Always will be a Jiri Prochazka guy. I think he's going to win this fight by knockout in the third or fourth round. But I don't hate Carlos Ulberg. I just don't like him. I just don't like him that much, you know? I don't think I've ever wanted someone to not be UFC champion more than I want Carlos Ulberg to not be UFC champion. Like, I just can't imagine a world where this guy is representing a division in the UFC as a champion. Like, that sounds absolutely ridiculous to me. Like, think about that for a second. Like, Carlos Ulberg could be main eventing numbered cards in the UFC as a UFC champion. That sounds like a fucking nightmare to me. And no offense to Carlos Ulberg. I'm sure he's a nice guy. He's a good looking guy. He used to be a male stripper. But I just don't want to live in a world where this guy is main eventing numbered cards in the UFC. He can main event cards in the Apex or the occasional featured fight on a, you know, fight night card, but I do not want this guy near the belt or near a main event after this one. But I'll say this. Feels like nobody's given Carlos Ulberg any chance, which he doesn't really have a chance in my opinion. There's things that he will do well. I'm going to outline them in this video, but I don't really think he is going to win this. I actually think this is kind of an easy fight to break down because you also have to break down like no grappling whatsoever. You're not going to see really any grappling in this fight. But in this video, I'm going to kind of outline points for both these guys, why I think Jiri is going to win, some things that Carlos Ulberg can do to possibly finish Jiri Prochazka. And for anybody saying that Carlos Ulberg's going to win this fight, he's on a 9-fight win streak, he's this great counterpuncher, great distance management, you're wrong. Mike Tyson once said, everybody has a plan until they're punched in the face. Jiri Prochazka once said, I get punched in the face until I have a plan. Let's get into this breakdown, though. Ulberg, you know, he's going to be very strong off his back foot, moving around the octagon very well, circling. Jiri's going to try and create a lot of chaos. He's going to try and create a lot of pressure, constant pressure. Ulberg's pretty low output. You know, you're not going to get a ton of exciting shit going on from Carlos Ulberg. He's going to flick the calf kick, kind of try and bait you to come inside to his range and over commit, and then he'll land on you like he did to Dominic Reyes, where he's looking for that lead hook, circling out. Let me tell you something about this Dominic Reyes fight. Because we were, me included, I picked Dominic Reyes to win that fight. We were all saying, Dominic Reyes, second title run starting now. Yeah. That was a little Lucas Tracy, excuse me. We were getting all excited for Dominic Reyes. He's going to knock out Carlos Ulberg, in fucking Australia. And then he gets brutally knocked down. That Dominic Reyes was one of the most pathetic performances I've ever seen. He couldn't find the range whatsoever of Carlos Ulberg. Ulberg was just chewing up that lead leg whenever he wanted, hitting on him whenever he wanted. And Dominic Reyes was throwing up these bullshit head kicks that had no chance of landing. He was so much slower, looked like a fat slob. I mean, he is one of the worst builds in the UFC, Dominic Reyes. Like, I'd say most UFC fighters have pretty good physiques. He just looks like absolute shit, like a fucking tub of ice cream. He does not look good. And I like Dominic Reyes. He's one of my guys. But he came into that fight looking a little bit out of shape and like he didn't want to be in there. But that's besides the point. Jiri Prochazka far more durable than any of these dudes that Carlos Ulberg has just beat up on. He has a much better chin. You know, Ulberg's KO'd guys like Alonzo Menafield. I mean, are we really fucking Alonzo Menafield? You know, he KO'd Dominic Reyes. Those are really his only knockouts over like big names, ranked names in the division. He's going to look again for that lead hook circling out. Ulberg's going to attack the legs early, Jiri Prochazka. We've seen Jiri kind of run into I won't even know if I'd call it trouble because it looks like he's in trouble and then he's not, but we've seen in his past fights guys going after that lead leg of Jiri Prochazka because he doesn't check leg kicks and he stands so wide out. You know, we've seen Alex do it to him, Khalil, Rakic did it to him pretty effectively. And the funny thing is, like, Joe Rogan, I just watched his fight back. Joe Rogan was freaking out over these leg kicks to Jiri Prochazka. That calf's bruised up, man. You do not want to be Jiri Prochazka. He's already compromised, and we like to make fun of Joe Rogan for that. He legitimately said all those things. Like Rakic clearly bruised that leg up of Jiri Prochazka in the first round, and it didn't matter. Jiri Prochazka just kept, kind of like shaking his head, pounding his chest like a fucking gorilla, and just running him down. It didn't seem to matter. When Carlos Ulberg has kind of tried to be a higher output fighter, and we've really only seen it like once or twice where he really was kind of trying to get into a little bit more of a bar fight, Kenny Nezuchukwu fucking knocked this guy out. Like, he is a Kenny Nezuchukwu victim. I don't even know if I fully pronounced my African brother's last name correctly, but after that, Carlos Ulberg's like, fuck it, I'm going to be low output. I'm going to just rip calf kicks, rip body kicks, land my jab, and just be low output. It's worked for him. He's won 9 in a row, I believe, since that fight. And, you know, he's going to fight kind of this boring style where he's trying to pull you into shots. We've seen him kind of throw up some stinkers as of late, like the Jan Blachowicz fight. The Reyes fight was boring in terms of nothing really was happening until Carlos Ulberg knocked him out. And I'll say another thing about the Jan Blachowicz fight, because a lot of people want to talk about how much of a robbery it was. And I agree, I do think Jan Blachowicz did win the fight. But who really gives a fuck? Like, it was such a boring fight. I just watched it back before doing this video, and I was like, maybe it was really clear for one guy. I think Carlos Ulberg landed more in that fight, but who cares? The entire fight was just calf kicking at range, checking kicks at range. Like, maybe Jan Blachowicz kind of had the bigger moments. He kind of had a moment where he rocked Carlos Ulberg a little bit in the third round. But, like, I just think people feel bad for Jan Blachowicz because he's just been on the wrong side of a lot of decisions and had these weird draws. And, like, since he lost the belt, he's just had kind of a weird career. I do feel bad for him. I do think he won that fight, but I don't really give a fuck. Whatever. Carlos Ulberg won it, I guess. But I do see some issues with Carlos Ulberg, you know, especially in the Volkan Ozdemir fight. That was a fight I recently watched back. Ozdemir was kind of finding some success, pushing the pace a little bit more on Carlos Ulberg, kind of making it more of a bar fight and not really staying on the outside. Like, at times when Ulberg would pressure in on Volkan, he'd kind of get a little wild with his striking. You know, his right hand's kind of all the way out, like, low. I know you can't really see in the screen, but these kind of looping right hands that he would throw that weren't really technical, and you're not generating really a ton of power there. And you need to be a lot cleaner. Like, Khalil Roundtree, for example, he throws these big looping hooks and overhands that kind of just aren't really tight or great, fundamentally sound. And he kind of has this overrated power, in my opinion, because he just looks like this. He is a jacked black guy, but he looks like a guy who just would knock you out once. Like, Jiri Prochazka was eating those things fucking clean. I think Carlos Ulberg has more power, but just an example, like, if you're throwing kind of these looping shots that aren't generating a ton of power from the hips, I don't really know if you can knock out Jiri Prochazka. Again, Alex Pereira is the only dude to do that. But for the most part, in that fight against Volkan Ozdemir, Carlos Ulberg did do a good job with the distance management. Also was kind of a, you know, lead hook, circle out merchant. I think he did it like 15 fucking times in that fight. That's kind of what he is for most of his career. But specifically in this fight, like, Volkan Ozdemir would kind of pressure him, get him up against the fence, and you just have Carlos Ulberg throwing that lead hook and circling out. It happened like a billion times. That's kind of his game. That's his bread and butter. That's his crossover. You know what I mean? Everybody's got to move, and that's his. But once Jiri walks you down and decides to pick up the pace on you, it could happen in round 2, could happen in round 3, could happen in round 4, could happen really in any of those rounds in this fight. Ulberg's not really going to be a guy who I think is going to handle the pressure great, in my opinion. Yes, he's probably more technical and has a nice check hook and is a better kickboxer, but that shit kind of all goes out the window, you know, against the Jiri Prochazka. You know what I mean? You're running into a guy that you really don't see. He's going to force the fight on his terms, and when Jiri doesn't want the fight to be on the outside anymore, the fight's not going to be on the outside. And for as much as I like to say Ulberg's probably a little bit better technically, I don't think he has these insanely great punching mechanics or this great ability that if he gets into a firefight, he's going to be able to come out of it. You know, he's running into the fire, running into the house, and he's got to save the baby and the dog. Maybe he gets one dog and there's 2 in there. Maybe he gets a baby and there's the twins in another room. Like, I don't know if he can pull enough shit out the fire to win these firefights against Jiri Prochazka. Now, that might have made 0 sense, but I just came up with that one on the fly. Pereira, again, is the only guy to do that. And even, like, Alex Pereira isn't really getting to these firefights with Jiri Prochazka. He's just so much... He just owns this guy. It doesn't even matter. Like, I can't even compare it to anything else. I think it'll be interesting, though, to see how locked in Jiri Prochazka is early on, because in the Khalil Roundtree fight, it was one of the weirder starts I've ever seen from Jiri. Even though he is a slow starter, like, he lost the first round of Rakic, lost it to fucking Khalil, lost it to Jamal Hill. I'm just making up dudes he lost the first round to. But even though he lost some of these first rounds, I don't think he looked as bad as he did early on against Khalil. He looked like a drunk, wounded gazelle, slipping everywhere. I thought during the fight that he was coming in with an injury. Like, it legitimately made no sense. I get Khalil Roundtree was attacking those legs, but from the get-go, he was slipping around. It made zero sense. It was odd. And I don't think Jiri Prochazka is from some tactician by any means. He's not fucking General Patton, Eisenhower, Benedict Arnold, you know, one of those guys, real American heroes. But he has gotten better with game planning and being more technical as his, you know, career has gone on. His head movements got much better. We saw it against Khalil Roundtree, saw it against Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill was kind of the first time we saw that implemented in his game, where he's slipping and ripping shots. You know, he's going to mix in punches, elbows in the clinch, stabbing, front kicks. That will be there against Carlos Ulberg when he's switching stances. Also just has a great feint game. He can draw big reactions to. He throws up that high guard. Like, he did this a lot against Jamal Hill, where he throws up that high guard to kind of bait you into a reaction, and then he punishes you. We saw him do it to Jamal Hill a lot. He has these weird movements that when he enters, it just makes it hard to really do anything against him. He moves like an alien, man. This guy is from a different planet. His movement is so weird. Again, you can't even recreate what Jiri Prochazka is doing in the octagon in any gym in the world. Like CKB, you're not seeing any of these from any of those kickboxers over there, or just anybody there. Nobody is moving around with the weird feint game and the slapping his head, fucking doing all this weird shit in the octagon like Jiri Prochazka. Nobody else is doing it in the world. The one thing I will say about Jiri Prochazka's head movement is he moves his head a lot, but his body, you know, the rest of his body isn't really moving as much as his head. So I do think Carlos Ulberg can rip kicks to the body and attack the body there. You know, it's an opening for him to kind of weaken Jiri Prochazka. But 5 rounds, Jiri Prochazka is going to force Carlos Ulberg to brawl. I could see Carlos Ulberg kind of take the first 2 rounds, just kind of doing his normal CKB Carlos Ulberg game, where he's ripping the calf kicks, ripping the body kicks, working that lead jab. Well, one thing I will say sometimes that I don't like that he does with his jab is, like, he is so long. He's actually not as long as Jiri Prochazka. I think his reach is about 3 inches shorter, but he'll, you know, do a nice job for the most part using his jab to, like, you know, put some pop in his jab. But sometimes he will use his jab to cover distance, and Volkan Ozdemir did a nice job just kind of popping him right back with the jab. So that could kind of punish him a little bit. I don't really know if that'll happen in this fight, but Carlos did do it a little bit, at least in that fight. Again, the Jan Blachowicz fight, you saw nothing but calf kicks. In the Dominic Reyes fight, that was an ultimate mismatch. But listen, in the clinch, Carlos Ulberg's going to want no part of him. You know, he wants to be in the open working the jab and the calf kicks. As Yuri's covering distance, I just don't think Ulberg has any chance. He wants no part of these exchanges. Again, I'm really interested to see how Jiri approaches the early rounds. Ulberg does have power, can land the big shots, but I can't see a world where he plays this for 5 rounds the exact way that he wants to. Like, I don't think he's going to be able to point fight for 5 rounds and draw Jiri into these big shots for 5 rounds. Like, I think he has to get a knockout in the first round and maybe the second round. Like, it's got to be early for Carlos Ulberg if he wants any chance. In my opinion, I think Jiri Prochazka is going to get a round 3 TKO. I just think he's going to pour it on. Maybe round 4 if Ulberg's fighting well. Shit, it could even be round 2. I think Carlos Ulberg will handily win the first round in terms of it'll be a clear 10-9 for the guy. I think he's just going to do a nice job ripping the calf kicks and everything. And Yuri's going to kind of take a little bit to kind of figure out, how do I get into this fight? Like, what is necessary? Shit like that. But it's going to be over for the Australian with a Mexican first name, Carlos Ulberg, in the 3rd or 4th round. I think it's going to be pretty brutal too. I don't know if he's going to get flatlined, but he's going to get hit pretty hard and maybe won't really know where he is. I don't think he's going to go out, but he's going to get hit pretty hard. This isn't Alonzo Menafield or Wash Dominic Reyes with no chin. You're fighting a guy who, there's some people out here who think this guy is legitimately, you know, has potential to be the 2nd best light heavyweight ever, or even the best. Some people will come out here and tell you this guy would beat John Jones and Alex Pereira, which is this ultimate mismatch for Jiri, and Jiri beats literally everybody else all time. I'm not one of those people, but I do think Jiri is fucking, you know, that good. Jiri is fucking Jiri. I can't even describe it. This video, the interesting thing about this video is it's like, you don't even have to go into the grappling whatsoever. There's really not going to be a ton of grappling at all. I could see Jiri. Could Jiri shoot a takedown? Maybe. I'd say he has a slight edge in the grappling. Carlos Ulberg kind of tried to shoot a takedown at one point against Jan Blachowicz. So could it happen? maybe, but Carlos Ulberg, you're getting welcome to the big leagues here. Jiri Prochazka is going to put belt to ass. If this was a 3-round fight, I could see Ulberg winning just kind of by playing his game and staying ahead and then surviving a big 3rd-round push from Jiri. But over the course of 5 rounds, I'm going to trust the guy who's been in big spots before, is more proven, is more durable, has more power, more electric striker, does everything better than Carlos Ulberg. UFC is going to be happy with this. Jiri Prochazka, he looks right with the belt. The world is better when Jiri Prochazka is the champion. I don't really know what this means for the division. If Jiri wins, like, he's going to fight Mirzakhanov next would be my guess, maybe Ankalaev, but are they really going to give Ankalaev another crack at the belt without having to fight somebody first? Maybe Ankalaev fights a Mirzakhanov or an Ulberg or a Costa if he beats Mirzakhanov. If Ulberg wins, legitimately shut down the division, though. I have no clue what you do if Ulberg wins, because Jiri, like, maybe you do Jiri versus Ankalaev and then Mirzakhanov fights Ulberg. Like, that's legitimately terrifying to me, though. If Ulberg beats Jiri Prochazka, and I have to imagine a world light heavyweight division is already not that exciting. Like, you have fucking RDR and Robert Whittaker coming in here to try and save or at least generate some hype for. Like, if Carlos Ulberg wins, it legitimately gets spooky for the division. How funny would it be, though, if Jiri Prochazka just took down Carlos Ulberg and subbed him? That would be the funniest outcome to this. Again, I think Jiri Prochazka is winning this by round 3 TKO. I just think he's going to put too much pressure on Ulberg, and Carlos Ulberg, I just don't think he's there. I don't think he's near Jiri Prochazka's level. I don't think too many people in the world are near Jiri Prochazka's level. And Jiri Prochazka is going to win this fight and immediately call out Alex Pereira asking for a useless trilogy, even though it makes no sense because Jiri's at light heavyweight and fucking Alex Pereira is fighting for the belt of heavyweight. It makes no sense, but he's going to do it. And also, one other point I want to leave this video on. I have not met one legitimate Carlos Ulberg fan anywhere. Like, you see like a couple on Twitter that I'm pretty sure are just contrarians just picking against Jiri Prochazka because maybe they think the fan base is stupid. This legitimately might be one of the most one-sided, like, we want this guy to win and nobody cares about the other guy. Like, I don't even think anybody hates Carlos Ulberg. Just nobody cares about him. Like, he's boring. His personality's kind of whatever. He doesn't really have a ton of finishes in the UFC. Just nobody cares about this dude. But if he wins, everybody's going to hate him. And he needs a knockout to do it. He's not winning this by decision. That being said, if this is your first time here, remember to like, comment, subscribe. The doctor is signing off. Thank you for watching.